Hello, I'm Bruce Lorincz. This show is called Bruce on the Loose. I do shows for the business community in Wadsworth, also city government, and the school system as well. We did also shows in the past for Habitat for Humanity and also the Medina County Theater Group as well. We have a very distinguished guest with us today, the Executive Director, Medina, Metropolitan Housing Authority, Skip Sipos. Skip, thanks for joining us very much. And you should be very proud of Santee Landing here.
We are. It's a wonderful addition to the community. It was a collaborative effort to make it happen. And we think the final results are really something good to look at.
And how many years have you been with the Medina County Metropolitan Housing Authority?
The Housing Authority hired me 29 years ago next month. So it's been a 29-year career so far.
And your educational background?
I graduated from Cleveland State University with a bachelor's in business administration, and I've done additional coursework specific to housing authority and public service.
Kind of a unique situation. You were telling me before we went on the air that the housing authority is kind of a separate entity, very autonomous. There's no state organization that you have to answer to.
Right. Housing authorities in Ohio specifically, and in general in the United States, are separate political subdivisions. They're not part of county government, the federal government, state government. So we are basically a separate entity with our own separate board, and we work collaboratively with those entities, but housing authorities themselves are separate and distinct.
How many employees would the MMHA employ?
Right now we have 35 employees. We have our own full-time maintenance department that's on call 24/7 to respond to issues at the properties. We have leasing staff. We have our own finance department. And then we also have a programs department that works on rental assistance programs throughout the county. And we're always working on trying to meet the needs, the affordable housing needs in the county. So we're always looking at additional development opportunities.
I bet you didn't have that many employees when you started 29 years ago, did you?
No. The Housing Authority then, in 1994, we had 8 employees. Those employees were focused primarily just on 3 properties. Today, we manage properties totaling 17, and they range from single-family homes to a 100-unit building here in Wadsworth, Wadsworth Tower. And we serve a wide variety of constituents. We have family units. We have units that are dedicated for folks with severe mental illness diagnoses. We work with folks with developmental disabilities. Interestingly enough, next door to Santee Landing is a house that we did in collaboration with the Medina County Board of Developmental Disabilities. And so 3 of their clients are living in that house right next door. And then we also work on properties for the elderly. We have multiple properties that are dedicated to folks, older adults. Some of those are 55 and older, so I don't know if that's necessarily older adults, but we have many of our properties specifically for older adults.
It sounds like in your 29 years there's been a multitude of changes that you've had to work with.
Yeah, the beauty of Medina County, and I tell people this all the time, this jurisdiction is the most wonderful place to live, to work, to worship, to shop. And it's inviting, and that's where the collaborative efforts come into play. So if you've got, as we do, great city leadership like we do in each of our 3 cities, especially here in Wadsworth, Mayor Labaugh, and the county commissioners who recognize the need in the community, and then we'll also set aside resources to help address those needs. You can't ask for anything more than that.
I think that was very evident. We had the dedication in mid-October. Mayor Labaugh, as you mentioned, was here. Steve Hambley, Medina County Commissioners, and Senator Brown was here. Sherrod Brown was here to give his comments. That had to make you feel pretty good that it shows the government's support and are with you in all the things you try to do.
It does, Bruce. And I will tell you that it passed dedication ceremonies. We had a groundbreaking ceremony in Brunswick where then House Speaker Bill Batchelder helped break ground for that property, and that was pretty cool. We had a ribbon cutting at another property where Senate President Larry Ophoff presided, and he got the big scissors out and did that. And then to have Sherrod Brown here on a very cold day take time to not only give his comments, but then stay and talk to staff and visitors. It was funny because at the end of the ceremony, his staff is trying to drag him away, and he didn't want to go. He was having detailed conversations. And so if you think about it there, that's both sides of the aisle, right? The partisan aisle, both sides. And you have people who cared, who showed up and made a big contribution bringing awareness to the wonderful value of affordable housing.
What about Brunswick? Let's get to the three communities that you work with. Have they had anything recently that they've developed?
Well, recently is somewhat
nebulous. That's true. Yes, it is.
Our most recent development in Brunswick was 2016. We built what's called Southwick Manor Apartments. That's a senior building, 4 stories, 54 apartments. And then 2 years ago, Southwick Place, which is adjacent to it, was a property that we originally developed in the early 1990s. We did a total rehab of that. So those two properties are right next to each other, and that's a total of 104 units. The Southwick Place is for families. And then really close to that is Manhattan Place Apartments. That's 34 units that are dedicated for families, but we also have some of the units set aside in collaboration with the Medina County Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Board, the ADAM Board as we refer to it here in the county.
Another collaboration, another government entity that had said something. Did they approach you and say, hey, we could use some help here? And then minds get together and somehow a plan is hatched.
That's exactly what happened. And the beauty of it is that dated back to 1996 for one of the first that we did. And we've done similar things like that with the ADAM Board since then. And the ADAM Board recently opened some recovery housing for women in recovery, and the Housing Authority is managing that property for them. So they're not reinventing the wheel. They rely on those relationships to keep doing what they do best and bring us in to do what we do best.
So there's just not an apartment complex that you manage. It sounds like your array of facilities is quite wide.
It is, I think, and I know that it's unique in the state of Ohio. Again, being around for 29 years, I'm familiar with how other housing authorities in Ohio do their work. Many are just focused on 1 or 2 principal programs. We do a lot of different things, and one of the things that we work on is emergency housing here in the county. There's no other housing authority in Ohio that does the kind of program we do on the emergency side, including an emergency housing shelter, which is one of the initiatives we're trying to pull together right now.
What about Medina? What are some facilities that you manage in Medina?
The first property the Housing Authority did, which dates back to 1971, Northview Manor Apartments, is next door to our office building. That's a property dedicated to older adults and those with federally defined disabilities. That's 84 units. So we manage that one, and we manage some single-family units. We manage some other properties in conjunction with the ADAM Board. The ADAM Board has 5 different properties we manage. And then we also have a couple homes, much like the one next door here, in conjunction with the Board of Developmental Disabilities.
Tell us about Wadsworth. I know there's several facilities you manage here in the fair city of Wadsworth.
I'll try to do this in certain order. So in 1979, the Housing Authority developed Wadsworth Tower. That's a 100-unit building just south of the main intersection in town. That's dedicated also for older adults and those with federally defined disabilities. Right next door to it in 2010, we built 5 little units for folks with sensory and mobility impairments. And I like that project a lot because we went very energy efficient because we were going to pay the utilities on that building. We did geothermal heating. Wow. It works like a charm. And then we also manage, in addition to Santee Landing here, we manage Menoir Apartments, and that's my favorite building out of our entire portfolio. Menoir Apartments was developed originally in 1974 by the Mennonite Church of Wadsworth, hence the name Menoir. It's 70 units for folks 62 and better. It was smoke-free as a campus even before we got involved. It is by far my favorite property because of the residents and the owners, which is still a nonprofit organization affiliated with the Mennonite Church.
We had Reverend Moore on one of our shows
recently
with Trinity Church, feeding a lot of families, and he is president of that organization, and quite a gentleman indeed.
He is an amazing man, as are the other trustees, but I could listen to Jim. I could have only imagined what a preacher he must have been. And he presided over the 40th anniversary party at Menoir, and Bill Batchelder was there, and his wife Alice. Most folks know that she was at one point considered a potential member of the United States Supreme Court. So to have those types of dignitaries share in the celebration of Menoir was really cool. But Jim he's one in a million.
Santee Landing, 45 units.
Yes.
And how are those units divided? Are they all one bedroom, two bedroom, or combination?
Nice combination, because this is for families, so there are 5 one-bedroom apartments, there are 5 three-bedroom apartments, and then the balance, which would be 35, are two-bedroom apartments. We have 5 of the units are dedicated to folks with mobility impairments, so they're wheelchair accessible. We have a unit that specifically is set aside for those with sensory impairments, hearing or sight issues. And then the building itself is designed so that families we have laundromats or laundry rooms on each of the floors. It is a smoke-free campus. We have an exercise path outside. We push wellness whenever we can at our properties. I think it's a perfect part of the concept of affordable housing.
No question about it. And certainly the timing. You kind of got into the front end of COVID, and some of those supplies, although the building was constructed for over $10 million, I guess. Is that correct? So you probably got in at the right time for some of those supplies and materials.
Well, the COVID impact was very real. So supply chain issues hit and slowed the project down. The total project cost was just over $10 million. A little over $7 million of it was just construction. But the labor shortages, the supply chain challenges, that slowed down the completion of the project beyond when it was supposed to be done. And so we got the keys, if you will. I think it was December 10th of 2021. It was fully leased by the end of that year. So in 21 days, we fully leased all 45 apartments.
Boy, that's quite, is that a record? I mean, boy, it seems to me that's less than a month.
Yes.
You had full occupancy. That's unheard of.
Yes, and in this business, there's a lot of paperwork. We can attribute that to great staff who understand the mission of the organization and are dedicated to it. And of course, the residents were appreciative. But it's a pretty neat feeling when you see a place like this get developed, and then folks are able not only to move in, but some of our residents have actually found employment nearby. And that was the idea behind Santee Landing, was workforce housing. We know our members of the Economic Development Corporation in Medina County are struggling to find good employees. So when you build affordable housing near those employers, they have a better chance of securing them. And when folks move into properties like this, they become ingrained in the community. They could become the softball coaches, they could be parents in PTA, they'll be voting, they'll be attending our many houses of worship. And so they're part of the community, and that's what makes this so strong. The other part, which is great, is it's really an economic development tool. Not only did we spend over $7 million to construct this property using many local suppliers and contractors, but the property also contributes a property tax payment in lieu of taxation to the school district. Right. So the people here are working and paying income tax, the property is contributing to the schools, and the initial contribution, the construction cost, really adds economic value to the community.
Really the proof in the pudding comes down to comments from the residents. What are some of the comments you've received since it was opened December of 21?
That's actually an interesting question. It remains, I believe we have one vacancy today, so the fact that it's full, I think, speaks volumes. Yeah. And the reality is that we're not receiving complaints. And what's interesting, we're shooting this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the parking lot's pretty empty because most folks are at work and the kids are at school. Sure. So it's actually, from that perspective, it's what's refreshing to see.
I'm sure you would hear if there was something
yes.
not quite up to standards or yes. some problems here or there or everywhere. So I think in that regard, you could probably say that people are quite satisfied.
We've no reason to think otherwise, that's for sure.
No question about it. No question about it. Well, Skip, why don't we go ahead and take a little break here and go ahead and see up close and personal some of Santee Landing, if that's okay.
That sounds great.
We're back with Skip Sipos. I'm going to get it one of these days. Sipos.
Right.
Sipos. Thank you. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Once I get through the names, we're all right. Okay. We're in the community room here.
We are.
And very nice square footage here. Could there be parties here for some of the residents?
There can, and that's actually part of the intent, is gathering space for the residents to use privately. They're able to avail themselves of the building and this room. But we also will do events for our residents, including, we just had a dinner not too long ago just for residents, and resident appreciation kind of dinner, We will do events that'll include things like health clinics or bring in speakers from like Feeding Medina County or OSU Extension. We have outdoor garden pots, and we like to make sure that our residents can, if they'd like, utilize not just the inside space, but the outside space. And the garden spots are perfect for residents, and then we'll give them some training on how to do good gardening.
That's one thing I really noticed. You really press healthy living. There's no smoking here. You have the exercise path. Mm-hmm. You don't see that too many other places, do you?
I don't know that it's probably a profitable thing to do in the for-profit world, but we like to push wellness. And again, this is designed to be affordable housing. And so folks who are able to spend a more proportionate amount of their income on housing or shelter-related costs, then they have more disposable income to spend on things that lead to a better quality of life. And that can be wellness activities, that can be education, it can be entertainment. And so that's why we do this, so to give people that opportunity to enhance their lives.
Who can qualify for one of the 45 units here at Santee Landing?
There's both economic and non-economic criteria. The economic criteria is based on income levels, and it changes based on the time. It could be different in the year. And the different units also have different caps on them in terms of affordability. What we say to people is, you call the office to find out, or they can go to our website, which is real easy, mmha.org, to find out what properties have waiting lists that are open and what the qualifications are. Because our properties are all different. But basically, it's people who are making between 60% of county median income or less, which is adjusted for family size.
What about some of the process? I'm sure, again, with COVID and more hurdles you had to jump and supply chains and the funding. You know, when you're talking about millions of dollars, it probably is multiple banks that assisted you to get this done.
Actually, because this is a tax credit program, there was one lender involved. The Housing Authority itself invested and contributed to the overall cost of the project, and the tax credit program is what provides equity to make these kinds of properties happen. And right now, keeping it going, the rents provide for the operating dollars to keep things looking as good as they do, and then of course to make sure that we have the staff to take care of it. The property itself does not have any subsidy from the federal government. That was one of the bones of contention when we started designing the project. People were afraid that it was going to be automatically subsidized, and for whatever reason, some people thought that was bad. It is not a subsidized property, so folks that come here, the rent is the rent, and they're on their own to get it. Now, if they secure assistance from some other program, of course, we'll accept that. But the beauty of this place is the rents provide for sufficient operating costs and money to be set aside for future improvements.
And also, this is a facility which, again, a lot of people would say something to other people, and if you have things in the future, it would be an opportunity for other people to get involved.
Yes, and that's why the beauty of you being here today and shooting some video helps to spread the word about what the goodness of this type of affordable housing development is, because people have misconceptions. And people are, of course, going to have those until we can help break those barriers down. So the beauty of having this and others come and see it, much like the dedication ceremony when Senator Brown spoke, that's the best publicity in the world.
How was this property first acquired by MMHA?
This is the beauty of having a great board of commissioners. So my board, 5 members who are volunteers in the community, they authorized me based on my understanding of how this property would have scored in the application process, and they authorized me to go ahead and buy the property in advance of knowing we were going to get funding. And so that was a little bit of a roll of the dice.
They probably had some faith in you that you could get it done, but
let's go with that.
Okay.
We were successful. Sometimes applications take multiple years. The source for this is extremely competitive. One of our properties in Brunswick, it took us 7 tries to secure the funding. This was on the first try, and part of that was because of the location. And fortunately, we had bought the property. Fortunately, Wadsworth's a wonderful, wonderful city. And again, the collaboration with the school district and others helped make it real.
Do you have some other projects, since you kind of looking into the future and looking at some other things, anything in Brunswick or Medina or Wadsworth that you have in the back of your mind?
We're working right now. We have acquired land. The county commissioners helped us out with part of that in Medina. Part of the challenge in Medina County right now is we don't have an emergency housing shelter. So, if there's a stray dog, we have a dog shelter, okay? If there's an abused child, there's a protocol in this county to assist with that, and law enforcement's involved. If there's a homeless person on the street or a person who doesn't have a shelter of some sort, we don't have that right now in our county, and all the contiguous counties do. So we're working to make that happen. Part of what we need to build are units called permanent supportive housing. And we have the land acquired to build 10 units of that. And that's dedicated for people with disabilities who also are facing issues of housing crises, typically homelessness. And so our plan is to work on that. We've worked with the city of Medina who's contributed money. The county commissioners have set aside money. And again, we've acquired the land. And so we'll be making application later this year to the state for the balance of the funding needed to make it happen.
Some of the concern is that, the homeless are in California, or there's in Cleveland, but we don't have very many homeless in Medina County. Is that part of it?
I think that's a barrier, sure. People's understanding of what the need is in the community can be challenging. And folks don't necessarily see homeless like you might in an urban center like Cleveland or Akron, where you can go and see the homeless on the street. In Medina County, homeless can be sleeping in cars, they can be staying at campgrounds, they can be at the truck stops, so they can avail themselves of being able to get out of the elements once in a while. But we have homeless programming at the Housing Authority. We see many people each and every week facing housing crises. And these aren't people coming from other jurisdictions. These are the same people that are our neighbors, our friends, family members, our congregants. They're the ones that, they're part of our community, and we just need to find a way to help them.
Skip, is there any way we can take a look at a room possibly? Can you make that happen?
Yes, we have one vacant apartment we'll be happy to show
right,
you.
I thought you mentioned it. Okay, we'll be right back. We're back with the final segment of Bruce on the Loose. We're here at Santee Landing, and Skip, this is the only vacancy that's not occupied.
Yes, this is the only vacant apartment we have today. And the beauty of these apartments, and we're glad to show it off to you, the apartments come furnished with their appliances. So we've got the refrigerator, stove, and dishwasher. This is a 2-bedroom apartment. So it comes, all the flooring in the resilient flooring throughout the apartment. It comes with additional storage for the residents, and comes, of course, with the window treatments, so folks don't have to buy other window treatments themselves. And the units are pretty much the same in terms of what's provided. The beauty of this building, of course, is that it's got the combination of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. Storage is a very nice room off to our right here, and that can really, people accumulate things as time goes on. That's right. We accumulate all sorts of things. Yes, we all do. And one of the interesting things here, of course, because it's a family unit, children will have bikes. And of course, we have a bike rack out front if people want to, leave their bikes outside. But come this time of year in the winter, typically people might want to bring that in. So they've got some room for storage inside here. And of course, for like many of us, there's holiday decorations in boxes and things like that. And as we mentioned earlier, the place was completely leased up in December of 21 in time for the holidays. And again, the place just, it brings a smile to my face to be in this unit. It looks good and it's holding up really, really well. No question about it. Again, residents, if there's something minor that is not working properly, they can, what was their procedure to go ahead and mention? Sure. When people move in, they get a move-in packet, and it includes ways for them to contact us. So they can contact us for a work order electronically with an email or a communication through our website. They can call a phone number that's available 24/7. And in the event of emergency, let's say there's a leak in a faucet or something like that, they can call a number that our guys are going to respond to. They get a hold of our answering service, and we're on call 24/7. They'll respond. So the residents will get minor things done. If the door's not latching properly or something minor, guys will come out within 2 business days or less and take care of it. If it's an emergency, they respond immediately. I would think the residents would be very elated. They're moving into something new, something that's theirs, and they want to keep it nice. I think that's generally the trend, and people, again, they are appreciative of this. And the beauty of the overall programming is that when you provide this type of opportunity for folks, affordable housing, and it contributes to the community so well, I've had multiple compliments from people in the area saying, this building makes the area look even better than it did. And that in itself is just a great compliment.
Is there anything beyond? I see the places where people could do some exercise and walk around the little pond. Is there a walking path beyond that?
That walking path, yes, it's a paved path, so it's accessible for folks with mobility challenges. It goes around that path. The exercise stations are there that you mentioned. And in the summer or warmer months, there is a fountain that's there. And I love the fountain because it looks so good, but it's really done to keep the water that's aerating in the retention pond. So it looks good. It gives a feel of something really, really special for the residents when they're out there walking around.
Anything in store down the road? Are you looking at anything for Wadsworth in the future that could augment the community?
We're always looking.
Right.
And the challenge in Medina County, and Wadsworth especially now, because of the great growth it's had in the past few years, especially on the commercial end, finding property is very, very challenging. But when the opportunities present themselves, we're always in a good position to jump. Habitat
for Humanity mentioned that as well, that there are fewer and fewer properties that they can go, and on a real street near the high school, they have constructed 2 new houses there, and so they're always looking as well. So you're a little bit in competition.
Well, actually, we're in collaboration, going back to our theme. So Tom O'Connell, who's the executive director for Habitat, was able to fortunately meet with us and go over some things that we're actually trying to work with them on getting a single-family home for renovation.
He also, I did a show with him, and he said they're looking for multi-houses, a little bit larger tracts of land, so he could put maybe 3 or 4 houses on.
It's interesting. Tom and I presented to Medina City Council not too long ago about some land that the city has. And the beauty of that land is it could accommodate both an apartment building and some townhomes that Habitat is considering doing. So it's again, the collaboration of entities with the same purpose.
Skip, we've learned so much about the Medina County Housing Authority and your future thoughts, and I'm sure you've made so many people happy in your days at 29 years plus, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being on the show, and I'm sure this is an educational program for people throughout Medina County.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.